Howdy, Makers Church. This is Testimony Tuesday. I'm Pastor Glenn.
And I'm Mark, and we are thrilled, as you can see, to have Gill with us today, the artist in residence at Makers. Gill, awesome to have you here. Thank you for being here.
No problem. It's my pleasure to be here.
You know, Testimony Tuesday this week is going to be focused on Pastor Derek's theme from last Sunday's message, which was equality. Now, this was the second message of this great new series that we're doing at Makers on the Kingdom of God.
Yeah, and as Pastor Derek said, just that whole concept of equality is foundational in the kingdom of God. Everyone matters, everyone has value. Jesus saw everybody with that sense of value, dignity, and worth. And so on this whole theme of equality, we thought that we would just ask Gill just to see whether he had any spoken word piece that might address this theme of equality. And very thankfully, he replied and said, funny you should ask. As a matter of fact, I do have one or two. So before you share your spoken word piece, Gill, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, in case anybody on the planet does not know.
There's a lot of people who don't know, but I'm going to fix that. My name is Gill Sotu. I'm a proud artist in residence at Makers Church. I actually make my living through art, through teaching, through performing for small communities and large corporations. I also am the musical director for TEDx San Diego. I work at the Old Globe Theater, as well as some other theaters as a teaching artist and a commissioned playwright. And then I DJ everywhere. So weddings, corporations, like small parties, anything that has to do with art, I'm all about. And I need to be all about it because I'm supporting my wife and two beautiful children, Jackson and Gianna. Well, actually, she supports me emotionally, but like I'm working to help do my part. And so right now, I'm not in my usual setup. I'm here in Arizona. We're visiting some friends who actually introduced us as a couple, and they have 5 kids. So there's 7 kids under 12 years old, and us parents are getting buried, but they allowed me this time to be here with you, and it's been a pleasure.
Oh my goodness.
My.
I'm amazed it's so quiet. I cannot believe it's so quiet.
I'm terrified that door.
Handcuffs here.
I'm terrified that door behind you is going to burst open with all these kids spilling in on you. But I hope it's locked.
I don't know why, but I became the resident jungle gym. Like every time I come here, like they don't do that to the other parents, but to me, they love to jump on me.
That's brilliant.
That's awesome. Gill, tell us a little bit about your thinking on this theme of equality. How does that resonate with you?
Well, really, I think the misconception out there is that once we were given our freedom, then everything was equal, you know, and that's far from being true. If you search the news right now, and you don't have to do a lot of searching, there's just so many examples of us almost feeling like we need permission to just live a regular life, like, you know, go jogging down the street, be in our dorm room at Harvard, going into our apartment building, people always checking our ID. Like for the longest time, Renee, my wife, who's Latina, but she's very fair skinned, she would, this is before everything went bagless, but she would buy something at Walmart and have it just out and just walk out the store with it. Whereas like I would need to have double bag, my receipt tagged on the top of the bag, just so I wouldn't get questioned. Because the biggest thing is, I know that I'm in the right all the time, but there's like this thing that we call the black tax, meaning like we have to pay a little bit extra. And a lot of times that paying extra is our time. And that's the one thing that we can't get back. So we have to be above reproach, like have a, you know, seem perfectly you know, in the right, just to do normal things so that nobody messes with us.
Brutal.
Okay? And so that is constantly in our mind, and every time that we do start to let our guard down, another report comes out of someone being either killed or harassed or arrested, and the genesis of that is the color of their skin, you know.
Yes.
And it's something that you can see from a distance, you know. So it's different than even your sexual orientation. Like, it's something that from a distance you could see that this person is different than you, and how you react to that is what we're trying to get on equal grounds.
Yeah, and, oh gosh, and I know as an artist and as a writer and as a poet, I know you you address these kind of issues and these issues of this racial injustice and all of that, and I think we'll have a chance after you perform your poem just to maybe talk about that a little bit more, how as an artist you address these issues. But we do want to, before we go very far into this, we want to make sure that we just have the chance just to listen to and experience your poem, the spoken word piece that you've chosen to do. So please just go ahead and introduce it, just however you would like to, and we'll see you on the other side of it.
All right. So this poem that I wrote, I was doing a research for this thing. We're doing poems and breakthroughs that happened in the 90s that we still benefit from today, or we're still affected by from today. And so I was just doing a general research about like things that happened in the 90s, big events that happened in the 90s. And, you know, I was seeing things about the OKC bombing, the OJ trial. These are big headline things, Columbine. And then this obscure article I came across that spoke about something that happened in the 90s that was in United States, in one of our major cities, that was very tragic. And I had heard nothing about it. And so this is what this poem is about. And it's about the 90s in general. So it's called Breakthrough 90s. Here we go. Lately, while I'm diligently handling my business on the toilet. I know that's a great way to start a poem, right? You'll thank me later. Lately, while I'm diligently handling my business on the toilet, my 2-year-old daughter manages to slowly push the door open and waddles herself in. Gianna and her famous blue pacifier make her way across the cold tile, and without a word, she just lays her tiny head against my thigh. She wants to be near her daddy, who has to work all the time. Simultaneously, I have these strong feelings of this really needs to stop. I mean, I'm going number 2 here, and I never want these moments to end. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how I feel about the 90s. See, I first fell in love with her music. Notorious Big, Redman, Lauryn Hill, Snoop and Dre, Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Boys to Men, Belle Biv DeVoe, and anything Teddy Riley. Yep, you get my gist. Then I fell in love with her dances, the Kid and Play, the Vogue, the Running Man, the Electric Slide, the Tootsie Roll, the Butterfly. You get my gist. I fell in love with her clothes, the baggy, sometimes colorful, worn backwards, sometimes with the tag still hanging on, sometimes airbrushed with the name of your boo or the dead or your crew. I mean, you get my gist. We were hip hop and grunge. We were sweaty and loud. And the worst thing we had to worry about from our president was catching him with his pants down. I mean, I guess we still have to worry about that as well now. But our breakthrough in the 90s was our originality, our ability to respect someone's abundant differences. I never wanted those moments to end. But then, stop. 1991, the Gulf War begins. Stop. 1991, the poster children for police brutality get away with beating Rodney King on the freeway. It is caught on videotape, and LA responds in a riot, showing the city outwardly how much it hurt on the inside. Stop. 95, OJ and the OKC sitting bombings are the only thing on people's minds. But in the meantime, 750 people die in a heat wave in the south side of Chicago. The block was hot and it looked like death, but no one paid attention to the humidity dripping from their breath because the majority of the victims were old, black, and broke. 750. Now, this is more than 3 times the death of Columbine, the OJ murders, and the OKC, and the 93 World Trade Center bombing combined. You know, the stuff that actually made the headlines. No death is worse than another. Listen to this. No death is worse than another. But damn, 750 Americans die in a state I was born in, and I don't hear a thing about it. Doesn't make most 90s US history timelines. Old, black, and broke. Just one of those things will get you ignored in America. 90s or now. 2, and I wouldn't want to be you. If you're guilty of all 3, well, if I'm being honest, that will someday soon be me. And my heart breaks and my pulse quickens because I wasn't able to give them their proper silence, their proper prayer. Every year it grows hotter in California. When I am living in the dusk of my life, when the certain black bleeds to a snowflake gray, when I cannot entertain, I can no longer work or teach, will we go back to 90s thinking? Will my country see my value? Will I be worth decent AC for a week? Big question. When I can no longer carry monetary value, who will truly care for me? I know some of you, black or not, might be wondering the same thing. So yes, Gianna, baby girl, come rest your tiny head on my thigh while I'm using the restroom. I will treasure and hold tightly to all of these sweet and stinky moments that you need me. And I'd appreciate it when the reverse is true, that you never let me go. And that's it.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you. Thank you, Gill. Powerful. I think there's one of the many lines that really hit me was that line which just talked about, is just not being able to give those 750 their proper silence.
Right.
Meaning their proper prayer, that moment to stop and honor them and remember them. And we're actually recording this in actual fact on Memorial Day. And I did happen just to see some of the laying of the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington Cemetery, and right there on the tomb, it just says about the unknown soldier, known only to God.
Right.
And that's the thing too, is that everyone matters to God. Everyone has value. Everyone has worth. And so, wow, just really, really powerful. So thank you. And I mean, how do you, are things different? Are things different from the 90s to now? Obviously, we're still, in this, obviously we're in this era of COVID, but also the whole situation, with Ahmaud Arbery and all of that, and all of the sort of racial injustice and that sort of systematic problems that we have. I mean, how are we different, and how is it just the same?
Well, it's different because more and more people are finding their voice, right? Mm. So when people hear, my poem and other great poets and songwriters and even athletes like LeBron James, using their voice to speak about injustice, and we have this powerful tool of social media, then that just puts the awareness in people's minds. And sometimes it takes knowing someone else's perspective and seeing it in a different light to change your mind, to change your heart, to compel you to want to do something about it. And that's what's the difference now. What's the same is we're still dealing with a lot of the same problems of inequality from our prison systems. I go into the Centinela State Prison every week to teach Shakespeare to prisoners.
Whoa. You do what?
Yeah.
You do what?
Yeah. So I teach Shakespeare to prisoners, but the vast majority of the people that are in there are black and brown. It'd be literally like seeing a unicorn for me to see someone that was Caucasian. And I know that there are Caucasian people in prison, but just the vast majority that I see are black and brown. And so we're being incarcerated at an alarming rate. We're being persecuted at an alarming rate. And even just basic necessities. In Michigan, people are still dying, and children are still dying of lead poisoning from the water out there, from all the manufacturing. And that news cycle came and left, but the kids and people are still unsafe to drink their water out of their taps. So the equality is still not there, but now we have a lot more ways to get our voice out, and it takes allies to really make it through, because we're not in positions of power to sign documentation or legislation to change these things. But if we can influence, until we get there, if we can influence the people who are in charge, then that's how we're going to change things. And it's with conversations like this that someone will know someone or get mad enough to speak their voice, and they're a person of power. That's the only reason why we're going to change things. The last thing I'll say, like even last night, I was watching this journalist, his name is Charlemagne the God, and he was interviewing Joe Biden. And one of the important things is, you know, Joe Biden's gotten a lot of support from the African American community, being vice president to Obama, but Charlemagne was like, you know, you're not just going to get our vote just because we're black. You know, let us know how you're going to fix some of the inherent problems that have been going on for centuries in terms of equality. And so we're putting the people who are in charge to task to, like, what are you going to do to help fix what is going on, and not just be a casual observer and just shaking your head. Like, the people who do have a voice, we need to really get them charged.
Absolutely. And this kind of ties in, just to give a shout out to the interview that Pastor Derek did with another pastor called Mike Kelsey. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, please listen to it, because this really addresses this issue, unpacks it even more in such a great way. And I wrote down one of the things that Mike Kelsey said, which was, it's the gospel that should motivate us to practically engage in the struggle for racial justice. And that should be our conviction. And it's interesting, Mike was talking about white guilt. You know, you're saying, you know, that's not a good motivator. He said it's got to be a conviction. That's the conviction of the heart, and the conviction to just practically engage in this struggle. So how can we do that, Gill? How can we just practically engage in the struggle for justice?
So this is what I would say is really thinking about it as, it's not them or us. It is us. We, as this is your community. So when you see injustice, like MLK said, injustice to one is injustice to all. This is us. So when you see people who are unfairly being incarcerated, when you see someone getting harassed at a grocery store, or when you hear about things that are going on, you know, speak up about it. If you have the power to change something, change something. If you have the power to balance the scales, then balance the scales. Or if you know someone who knows someone who's able to do that. But the first step is to stop looking at it like, I want you to see my color, because I don't want you to take away my culture, but understand that I'm also a part of the American culture and the American community. So you're seeing, if you see something that's unbalanced, think about, what can I do to help balance this? Because you're never going to want to fix the problem until you ask yourself the right question.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you're not asking yourself the right question, you're never going to come up with that answer. If you're just seeing it and it doesn't affect you, and it's just something that's out there, then it's not going to matter to you. But now if you ask yourself, okay, because I can't speak for everybody. I don't know what everybody can do, right? So if you ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do to help us get through this? It's kind of, if you watch my TEDx poem that I did for COVID, it's the same answer. What can I do to get us through this? And when you say us, it's black, brown, whatever color. what can I do to get us through this? And so that's the thing that you want to keep thinking and keep asking yourself, and you're going to come up with the answer. God's going to give you the answer for yourself, you know?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we could just keep going forever. This is so powerful. Mark, any closing questions before we sign off here?
Oh gosh. Well, I just think I think more just a thought. I mean, that God will help us to ask the right questions. So it's more of just that kind of challenge, and also may our prayer be, just the Lord's Prayer. Lord, may your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And just may your kingdom, with all of the qualities and the quality of equality that is foundational in the kingdom, may that come on earth, and may we be a part of that happening. And just, Lord, help us to ask the right questions, and help us to just be convicted by the gospel in just a new way. So, Gill, cannot thank you enough. Wow.
Thank you.
You have so much. I just have so much here that I just little notes that I wrote, haven't even got to. So maybe that'll be another day.
Anytime.
But but we just need to be, as you said, talking and asking the questions, and together as we and us, just seeking to impact the world in that way. So bless you. Thank you for your gifts. May God continue to gift you with imagination and creativity and insight. Where you have us laughing, and then have us, the kick in the stomach, that kind of, that's a gift to be able to do that. And may God continue to use you in that way. Thank you, Gill.
Thank you. We're going to pray you can survive being a jungle gym the rest of the weekend.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And I challenge both of you guys, because I know you didn't know any of those dances that I was talking about. I challenge both of you guys to look up those dances and see if one of them compels you to bust it out next time you're on the dance floor.
Well, thank you so much. I will just let you know, and Stephanie will just be so just terrified that I mentioned this, but I've seen Stephanie do some of these, So I've outed Stephanie, So.
Perfect.
Bless you, Gill.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you, everyone.